In addition to the body armor, I'd also like to test Zaslon's helmet, among other extremely modern Russian helmets in use by their special forces. These helmets are quite expensive, and I would really appreciate a donation from you.
Now that I've racked up enough donations to purchase these helmets, let's test and take a look at the results. In this video, we're going to take a look at the new generation Classcom TOR helmet as seen in the Zaslon video, as well as the LSHZ 1 Plus helmet from the TSSN FSB video. Both of these helmets have become immensely popular and widespread among Russian Spetsnaz, largely in part due to their arc rails, night vision mounts, and modern suspension systems. However, I've tricked you. We're actually only going to be ballistically testing the TOR helmet today, and that is because after some weight tests and close examination, I've discovered that the LSHZ 1 Plus helmet is, as I've suspected, made with the same aramid composition as the Russian Army's 6B47, a helmet that I've already shot. This means that the LSHZ can barely withstand NIJ level 2A punishment and will struggle or even fail against beefier rounds like 45 APC. So far I've been a little frustrated because I haven't tested a Russian-made aramid fiber helmet that meets level 3 NIJ standard. A lot of particularly annoying viewers have said that helmets at lower NIJ levels are not a problem and frag protection is enough. To that I would say there is a great helmet from 1915 if you only care about stopping frag. And I'd also like to point out that given that Russians face an unusually high number of smoothbore ballistic threats due to their weapons laws, a higher 3A rated ballistic helmet would be a bit more appropriate than the common 2A types. Usually Russian helmets are much stronger than the aramid ones that they've produced recently. Getting back to the TOR helmet, the quality is a bit of a mystery, with some examples apparently flexing if you tried to stretch them. This later gen specimen doesn't seem to have the issue, so let's get right into the test. Unfortunately, some of the video files disappeared into the void. I was pretty mad about this, so I went back and conducted some extra hyperviolent tests. As in, I shot the helmet with 45 APC super velocity hollow points at point blank range. The helmet is totally crunched, but the round didn't penetrate and the deformation would have easily been compensated by the pads. The inner Kevlar layers are still rigid too, suggesting that the helmet still has some strength to spare. This result conclusively demonstrates that the helmet is close to, if not, level 3A NIJ. Out of Russian aramid helmets, none of them have even come close to surviving an impact like this, putting the TOR conclusively at the top of the tier list of what I've shot so far. Previous to this test, I'd hit the helmet with 9x19mm and 45 APC defensive rounds that the Kivar RSP failed against. Neither penetrated, with very little deformation caused. When checking the deformation, we noticed a sort of chemical sanitizer type smell emanating from the helmet. This could be from the exposure of some kind of binding agent for the Kevlar fibers and would explain the TOR's extra strength. We also tried some vintage armor-piercing 9mm steel core. This steel core bullet had no problem going through the aramid fiber despite being made in the 50s. It can easily penetrate just about every Kevlar helmet ever made. Still, I had to try. Another odd round I tried was 7.62x39 subsonic rounds. A 200 grain full metal jacket round is a pretty serious threat.
That's not, I have a rifle. I just hit with the AK,
Subsonic.
But still.
Wow. With a very slow boat.
It didn't penetrate and there's virtually no deformation. Although I had witnesses, because the shooter's perspective went to the void, it's much less impressive, and on the reshoot at point blank range, the helmet failed consistently against 2 hits. I'm not sure if it was the extra energy from being point blank, or the first shot just hit an off angle, or perhaps the helmet being fixed on the ground stopped it from giving. I'm not sure. Let me know what you think in the comments. It's a relief to me to find that the TOR finally represents a good aramid helmet by the Russians. It is conclusively modern with level 3A NIJ protection, in-spec arc rails, and dial suspension. At the moment, the Classcom TOR is one of the best aramid helmets produced by Russia, and while it doesn't compare to the more modern polyethylene-based helmets that are in use by Western forces, it at least confidently brings the Russians one step closer to armor parity, or it would if the Russians made this margin of protection the standard. They haven't. That's all I have for you today. This video marks the final main test in the Russian ballistic test series. Besides some experimental and low production examples, there are not too many relevant Russian helmets left to test. No worries, I will continue to test the more obscure helmets as I'm able to acquire them. I can honestly say this has been quite an accomplishment, but there's a lot left to do, and I'm really starting to run out of time.
I am ready.